JayEmm on Cars is sponsored by Car Vertical. With just a registration number, or even better, a VIN, Car Vertical will search over 20 European databases to find out whether any car you're looking at has a hidden past. They can see if a vehicle was used as a taxi, stolen, suffered fire damage, or involved in a crash, even when it wasn't written off, so could pass other checks. Car Vertical is now an essential tool in my car buying kit, putting all the information I need to know together in one easy-to-read report. Even better, if you follow the link in the description down below, you'll get 10% off. A big thank you to them for being today's sponsor.
Hello everybody, another day and another Porsche courtesy of the good people of Region 2 of the Porsche Club of Great Britain, my friends George and Caitlin. Today I am out driving Jared's 987.2 Cayman S. There are both advantages and disadvantages for me of driving multiple cars that are very similar back to back. As a downside, it doesn't always do that well for views because people can be a little bit bored if there's too much Porsche stuff, so I'm going to try and meter out this week's content a little bit more than I have previously. However, it does give you a really good feel and appreciation of just how different otherwise quite similar cars may actually be. In one of my most recent videos, I said that I'd probably never buy another 911 ever again, and that's not because of anything inherently wrong with the 911, more the fact that I think I can get all of my Porsche thrills elsewhere for less. In one video I talked about the 981 Boxster S, a wonderful if slightly flawed car. However, those are fetching quite strong money at the minute, and for about half of that you could get yourself into one of these, a 987.2 Cayman S. Now yes, it's a very flawed thing to compare a Cayman with a Boxster, but as they are so very similar, it's not too difficult. The 981 was always destined to hold its money fairly well because it was the last naturally aspirated flat six Cayman or Boxster. Or so we thought, until Porsche introduced the GTS 4-litre models. Okay, yes, you had the GT4 and Spider, but those were special limited run cars that mere mortals couldn't get, not unless you were willing to spend 10 minutes in the cupboard with your local Porsche dealer principal. However, these newer cars are still a heck of a lot of money. The last one that I drove was 75,000 quid, triple the price of this. So is this a third the car? Well, no, not really. You see, from in here, it still feels like a very nice place to be. It'll be quite familiar to anyone who's ever had a 997 because it's more or less that generation of interior, and it all feels very well put together. The monotone, low-resolution graphics here and the old Porsche communication system aside, still feels like a reasonably modern car. This one has the full leather, and having now driven a few cars with that, I think if ever I were to get another Porsche, it's an option I'd really want. It doesn't actually feel all that nice because Porsche seem to have just stuck leather straight on top of the vinyl or plastic, but it looks really good and makes this cabin feel as upmarket as you would hope. There are still a couple of odd pieces in here, like this plastic strip that runs alongside here, which is just weird. Why they couldn't cover this in leather or just something, I do not know. And this plain steering wheel, I've never really been that fond of. I want some buttons because it just looks like it should have them. It's just a little strange. However, ignore that and you'll find an awful lot to like in this car. We'll start with the noise because it's proper. This comes from a time when a sports exhaust really made a difference, and this one sounds quite good. The 987 Cayman has always held a special place in my heart. You see, I think it looks just that little bit better than later cars. It's a design which seems a little more... What the The second time while I've been filming, and someone has been completely on the wrong side of the road. And that one, why'd she even need to be? What the hell was she thinking? Christ on a bike. People are dumb. I've always had something of a soft spot for the 987 Cayman. I think it's one of the best looking Porsches in years. Looks very distinct to the 987 Boxster, which later generations don't. They are very much coupe and convertible of the same thing. I know that was always really the idea, but I love the slightly more edgy looks of this car. It really does stand out. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be a 911. If you're on the hunt for a bargain sports car, temptation will always be to go for one of the earlier Caymans, a 987.1. However, those are fitted with the well-known M97 engine that is plagued with some fairly scary issues. So unless you're getting a car that's already had a proper rebuild or is on the Hardtech plan, I would advise some caution there. The shame is that actually you may well have a car that never gives you any issues at all, but it's going to be a nightmare to sell on because people are just generally afraid of them. The .2 generations receive the same direct fuel injection engines as the .2 generation 997, 911. This means that they are free of all of those IMS issues once and for all. This is part of the reason they command a significant premium. You'd be looking at paying around £10,000 more for one of these over the earlier cars. Is it worth it? I would say yes, for the peace of mind, if nothing else. There were numerous other detailed changes too, making these feel slightly nicer places to be, although this one is rattling quite a bit, which is very unfortunate, especially when you put your foot down. You may be able to hear it. It's something in the back. I don't know what. I've never had that in one of these before, so I think that's probably quite easy to fix. Went up by about 25 horsepower over the outgoing S, bringing it to a fairly respectable 320. These aren't the lightest of cars, but they're fairly spry, and I have to say, compared with the 981, they've just got that extra level of involvement and feedback that I think us driving purists would really appreciate. The steering isn't the best in the world, but it does have more texture through the wheel than the early 981s, and the chassis is quite communicative. These seats don't look that great, but in truth they actually do a fairly good job of holding you on, even when the road is quite demanding. Jared did previously have a 987.1 with the Tiptronic gearbox. One of the other big upgrades for this generation of car was the introduction of PDK. The extra 25 horsepower didn't really make the car all that much quicker, and in some ways I actually think these cars feel a little bit less potent than the earlier ones. In the manual, the 0 to 60 dash was improved by only a fraction of a second. However, for the automatic, it was about a whole second of improvement. That shows you just how bad the old Tiptronic was and how good the new PDK was. In truth, the original PDK gearbox is good, but not great. It isn't the sort of lightning response that everyone thinks it is, because that's what later ones were. However, it's still really enjoyable, and if you want an automatic, it's well worth seeking out a PDK over the older Tiptronic. Predictably, the 6-speed manual gearbox here is an utter joy to use. Heel and toe comes very naturally, it's got a really good action to it, but those gear ratios in Porsche tradition are just a little bit too long, and that really does blunt this car's performance. I've driven a number of different Caymans now, including the Cayman R, which is the sort of top of the tree really for this generation, and I really do like them, but I would say they're cars that really respond well to some gentle and sympathetic modifications. As it is, this is a fantastic sports car, and you can have a lot of fun in it. Jared, by the way, is an utter legend because he's travelled all the way up to north of Edinburgh from Warwickshire after seeing the post put out on the Porsche Club forums. I'm very glad that he decided to do that because this is a car that is really a very, very balanced thing. The suspension is nice, comfortable, compliant. You don't need adaptive dampers if a car is that well set up. For the road, this is perfect. Yes, on track, I think you'd find it far too soft. It's got just the right amount of grip. It's got a reasonable amount of pace, although yes, the gearing I think would help things. The noise, absolutely wonderful. Throttle response, brilliant. Steering, okay, not the best Porsche have ever made, but certainly far from their worst efforts. The view out is really special. Like all Caymans, you've got that twin boot arrangement, meaning this is massively practical. For 25,000 quid, if you're on the hunt for a sports car, you could do a heck of a lot worse. Thanks, Jared. Thanks to you all for watching. Please like, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.